In the blistering afternoon sun on a deserted highway outside Seattle, 16-year-old Elijah Parker wiped sweat from his brow as he approached a smoking Ferrari Fate Tributo. The white teenager looked ordinary: worn jeans, a faded t-shirt, and tousled blonde hair that needed a trim, but he possessed something extraordinary: courage to approach the visibly frustrated woman whose luxury car had broken down. Before we jump into the story, comment below where you're watching from today, and if you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on more surprising tales like this one. The woman was Alexandra Blackwood, the only daughter of one of the most influential tech dynasties in America. With a dismissive glance at Elijah, she told him to back off because this isn't some video game console. What she couldn't know was that this moment of contempt would become the catalyst that dismantled her family's entire technological empire. Minutes later, Alexandra stood paralyzed, not because the boy had fixed her car, but because of the platinum watch on his wrist. A secret heirloom hidden from the world, now adorning the arm of an unknown white boy on a forgotten stretch of highway. That watch wasn't merely a timepiece, it was evidence. A precision instrument cutting through the polished veneer her family had constructed with deception, corruption, and the exploitation of children they viewed as experimental assets. And what Alexandra didn't realize, Elijah wasn't just there to repair a car. He was there to dismantle an empire. The scorching summer heat shimmered across the cracked asphalt of Highway 99, casting wavering mirages that danced on the horizon. Elijah Parker, a junior at Westlake High, was trudging home after his shift at the local hardware store. Each step felt heavier than the last, his second-hand sneakers scuffing against the rough shoulder of the road, his weathered backpack hanging from one shoulder. Inside that backpack, alongside textbooks and half-finished homework, was a small toolkit wrapped in an oil-stained cloth, a precious gift from his Aunt Maggie, the only family he had left. She ran the only auto shop in their small town of Pinecrest, a hard-working white woman with calloused hands and a heart of gold. She had taught Elijah to diagnose an engine by its sound, to respect the machinery, and to never apologize for grease-stained fingernails if they came from honest work. At school, Elijah was largely invisible. His worn clothes, quiet demeanor, and tendency to disappear into the background made him easy to overlook. But beneath his unassuming exterior was a brilliant mind and a resilience forged through years of hardship. He didn't just excel academically. He had an uncanny ability to understand both machines and people, to listen when others only heard noise. As Elijah approached the turnoff to the trailer park he called home, he stopped. A gleaming red Ferrari Fate Tributo, a vehicle worth more than his entire neighborhood, sat on the shoulder, hood raised, wisps of steam rising from its engine compartment. Beside it stood a black woman in her 30s, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo. She paced back and forth, smartphone pressed to her ear, her voice sharp with irritation. "I don't care what the board meeting is about," she snapped, her voice carrying clearly through the still air. "I'm stranded on Highway 99 with a dead car, and the nearest service center can't send anyone for 3 hours. Unacceptable." Elijah maintained a respectful distance, not close enough to intrude, but near enough to observe the vehicle. He immediately recognized the Modella Ferrari Fate Tributo with a complex cooling system that required precise maintenance. The steam wasn't from a fire, but indicated an issue with the cooling system, likely a leak or blockage. The woman ended her call, shoved the phone into her designer handbag, and leaned over the engine bay, glaring at the machinery as if her disapproval alone might restart it. The car, of course, remained stubbornly silent, except for the occasional ping of cooling metal. Elijah furrowed his brow. instinct taking over. Aunt Maggie had always told him, if you see someone struggling with a car and you know how to help, don't wait to be asked. Knowledge unused is knowledge wasted. Taking a deep breath, he adjusted his backpack strap and approached, his voice steady despite his nervousness. Ma'am, your car seems to be leaking coolant down there. The woman looked up, initially startled, then skeptical. Before her stood a white teenager in a threadbare t-shirt and jeans with holes that weren't fashionable, just worn. Yet there was no hesitation in his expression, no uncertainty in his stance. She narrowed her eyes. It's nothing, she replied dismissively. Just a minor issue. You should head home. It's getting late. Elijah didn't retreat. He shrugged slightly. I know a bit about cars. Would you mind if I took a look? The woman laughed, not unkindly but clearly unconvinced. This is a $500,000 supercar, kid. It's complicated, not something just anyone should tinker with. Elijah remained calm, opening his backpack and retrieving his small toolkit. His eyes scanned the engine compartment methodically, as if each component was speaking to him in a language only he understood. A gust of hot wind swept across the highway, but it didn't shake the boy standing firmly beside the exotic car. The woman, who Elijah would later learn was Alexandra Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Technologies and heir to a tech fortune that rivaled the GDP of small nations, watched in frozen silence as this teenager not only showed no intimidation, but seemed to know exactly what he was doing, perhaps better than the technicians she regularly employed. And that was the moment everything began to change. The woman standing before Elijah, dressed in a bespoke Armani suit with a Hermes scarf draped elegantly around her neck, was no stranger to the technological elite of Seattle. Alexandra, Alex, Blackwood, 38, was one of the West Coast's most celebrated tech moguls, the CEO of Blackwood Technologies, creator of the world's most advanced AI systems and owner of data centers that powered half the internet. In the media, Alex was portrayed as the ideal, modern, leader, brilliant, beautiful, and boundary-breaking. But to those who had worked closely with her, the name carried a chilling reputation. Ruthless, calculating, and trusting no one but herself. Yet at this moment, on a deserted stretch of highway, Alex, the queen of artificial intelligence, was frustrated by a very analog problema. Stalled engine and a 16-year-old white boy whom she had just told to move along. Elijah stepped closer, his eyes quickly scanning the engine. Is your car having trouble, ma'am? He asked, his tone respectful, as if there was nothing unusual about the situation. Alex studied him for a long moment, hundreds of thoughts racing through her mind. Could this be some kind of scam? What could a trailer park kid possibly know about a Ferrari Fate Tributo? You should go home, she replied, her voice firm, though not entirely harsh. This is a precision, engineered vehicle, not a project car. Elijah didn't respond as she expected. No embarrassment, no retreat. He simply bent down, leaned over the front of the car, examined it briefly, then looked up, speaking calmly. There's a coolant leak. Can you smell that sweet odor? Alex froze. What? What smell? She immediately bent down, following his indication. Beneath the car, a small puddle of bright green liquid was forming, dripping steadily from a connection point. A sweet, slightly chemical smellethylene glycol, the coolant thung in the air. Alex straightened, taken aback, not because of the puddle, but because of how quickly this boy had identified it. How did you know that? She asked, her voice softening for the first time. Elijah shrugged, pulling out a roll of high-temperature tape and a small tube of sealant, the kind his Aunt Maggie always insisted he carry for emergencies. I learned from my Aunt Maggie. She runs Parker's auto shop near Pinecrest, he said, his hands never pausing. "I can't fix it permanently, but I can help you get to the nearest town if you'd like." Alex simply stood and watched. The boy knelt beside the car, skillfully disconnecting the leaking hose, cleaning the area with a small cloth from his bag, then applying the sealant and tape to create a temporary patch. Every movement was natural, efficient, practiced as if this wasn't his first repair, but his 100th. The dynamic between them shifted. Alex, who typically dismissed anything unprofessional, suddenly saw this boy not as a child but as someone with keen perception, steady hands, and most strikingly, an unspoken dignity that required no validation. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice carrying a note of genuine respect. "Elijah. Elijah Parker," he replied, wiping his hands on a cloth, offering a small smile. "And you?" Alex hesitated momentarily. She rarely introduced herself, accustomed to being recognized. "Alexandra Blackwood." Elijah nodded, showing no sign of being impressed. But when they shook hands, Alex suddenly noticed a gleam from his wrist. A watch. It was an old platinum timepiece with a distinctive blue face, clearly too large for Elijah's wrist. The band had been adjusted with additional holes to make it fit. In that fleeting moment, the sunlight caught the watch face, casting a blue reflection across her features, like a memory that had never faded. Alex stood motionless. There was something hauntingly familiar about it, so familiar that her chest tightened as if pulled violently back into the past. "That watch," she murmured. "Where did you get it?" Elijah looked down at the timepiece, his voice suddenly softening with a hint of melancholy. "It was my father's. He said it represented an important promise. He passed away 3 years ago." Alex swallowed hard, her heart pounding. She couldn't immediately explain why, but the watch, its design, the blue face, all of it, stirred a part of her memory that had been buried for over 15 years. And she knew this encounter wasn't a random coincidence. It was the beginning of something far deeper and more dangerous. Alex stood frozen, her hand still tingling from the handshake moments before. A small, thin hand, but firm, unexpectedly honest. Elijah, with his lanky frame and sun-bleached hair, knelt beside the Ferrari Fate as if he were the only one qualified to handle it. In the harsh afternoon light, his clear blue eyes focused intently on his work, revealing a maturity beyond his years. His faded t-shirt, though clean, had seen better days, and every movement Elijah made, from opening his toolkit to inspecting the engine to wrapping the tape around the leak with precision, demonstrated the dedication of someone who genuinely respected the craft. There was nothing hurried or boastful about his manner. Alex sat back in the driver's seat, staring through the windshield, watching the boy. She tried to calm the rising emotions within her. Not because of the car, but because of the watch. "Impossible," she muttered. "It can't be him." Elijah stood after finishing the sealant patch. He turned to his backpack, retrieved a bottle of water, carefully opened the coolant reservoir cap, and methodically poured the liquid in small increments. The engine now just needed to cool before attempting to restart. "You should let a professional handle this," Alex said. But this time, her voice held no arrogance, only a resigned acknowledgement. Elijah glanced at her, shrugged slightly. "I don't see any professionals here." His response made Alex laugh, but it was a reluctant sound tinged with bitterness. She was accustomed to people deferring to her wealth and power, employees eager to please, partners desperate to impress, the polished deceptions at contract signings. Yet standing before her was a 16-year-old boy who wasn't intimidated, who wanted nothing from her, who simply offered help. "Where did you learn all this?" Alex asked, allowing genuine curiosity to surface. "From Aunt Maggie." She runs the garage in town. Every weekend, she lets me work on engines. If I don't know how to fix them, I'll end up stranded on the side of the road someday." Alex nodded slightly. In her mind, distant memories, resurfaced charity events, those Inspire Underprivileged Youth initiatives she'd been dragged to as a young executive. But she had never truly encountered someone like Elijah Hawboy from a different world, filled with determination, self-respect, and no desire for pity. Then her gaze returned to the watch, the platinum timepiece with its distinctive blue face, a watch she had once held 15 years ago. It wasn't mass-produced, it was a custom design. A platinum case housing a unique blue face with constellation markers, the Blackwood family crest subtly engraved on the back, forming the letter B when viewed from the side. Alex quietly asked, "That watch, who did your father get it from?" Elijah hesitated, his expression darkening like a shadow passing across his face. "Dad never said exactly. He just told me it was a promise from someone special. They told him to keep it, and that one day I'd understand why." Alex felt as though her heart had been squeezed. The platinum, the promise, his father. All the pieces began to fit together like a nightmare she thought had been buried forever beneath mountains of tech patents, beneath the billions of dollars tied to new AI systems rising where there once stood a research facility, Horizon Children's Center, where she had promised to return, where she had left a promise embodied in this very watch and walked away without ever keeping it. Alex suddenly stood, her heart racing. She needed confirmation. She needed certainty. What's your name? Your full name?" she asked, struggling to maintain composure. "Elijah Parker," he answered. "I have Aunt Maggie's last name. She raised me after my dad passed away." "Parker." Alex took a step back as if struck by an invisible force. "Parker," she repeated. In old records, there had been a man named Michael Parker who had worked as a research assistant at Horizon. He had abruptly resigned and disappeared with a young boy named Ethan. She looked back at the watch, then at Elijah. "No, Ethan." In the distance, the engine hummed smoothly as Elijah pressed the start button. The Ferrari Fate roared back to life as if nothing had ever malfunctioned. But Alex no longer cared about that sound, because at that moment, her heart had recognized the terrifying truth. The boy standing before her was Ethan Blackwood, the child she had once promised to protect before everything was swept away by ambition, wealth, and dark family secrets. And, more importantly, if she had found him, then surely her mother, Victoria Blackwood, also knew, and that was dangerous, deadly. Alex gently grasped Elijah's wrist, the sensation of the cold platinum watch pressing against her palm causing her heart to skip. A distinctive blue face, gleaming in the setting sun, adjusted to fit a wrist, still bearing the awkwardness of adolescence, but already carrying more responsibility than it should. She swallowed hard, trying to maintain composure as she asked again, her eyes fixed on the timepiece. "That watch? It's from your father." Elijah nodded slightly, his voice deepening like an evening breeze. "My dad passed away 3 years ago. Before he died, he gave me this watch and said it was a promise from someone very important, someone he trusted more than anyone else." He looked up, his blue eyes as deep as an ancient well. "I don't know who it is, but he said, if one day you meet someone who recognizes it, you'll understand." Alex felt the air around her suddenly thicken. She had once given that very watch to Ethan, the boy with wide, innocent eyes who always followed her when she visited Horizon Children's Center, despite her mother's quiet disapproval. It was the Blackwood family's matching pair of timepieces, custom-made for her twin brothers, one of which still lay in Victoria Blackwood's jewelry safe. The other she had stolen during a confrontation with her mother and given to Ethan as a secret pledge. "When you see this watch, You'll know I'm coming back, I promise." And then she never returned. Alex lowered her head, torn inside. In that moment, the image of her mother, Victoria Blackwood, flashed in her mind, the most powerful woman in Seattle, the one who manipulated the entire tech industry like a chess game, and the woman who had erased Ethan's existence from all records, making him disappear as if he had never existed. Alex recalled an old document she had once glimpsed in her mother's office, marked in red with scrolled handwriting. S17, special case, no trace, forward assets. Now Alex understood. ES was shorthand for Ethan Sullivan, his birth name before he was adopted and renamed Elijah Parker. She suddenly found it difficult to breathe, as if each fragment of memory was suffocating her. Looking at Elijah, she had no doubt anymore. This boy was the child her mother had hidden, the child she had once promised to protect, and she had broken that promise. Alex sank back into the driver's seat, trying to steady her breathing, but Elijah's gaze still lingered on her. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. Alex forced a smile, for the first time allowing her carefully constructed facade to slip. "Not really, but thank you for helping me with the car, and with everything else." They drove toward town in silence. Alex couldn't tear her eyes away from the watch on Elijah's wrist, the fading sunlight reflecting off its platinum case. She began formulating questions. Why had Victoria allowed him to survive? Why had Michael Parker, Elijah's adoptive father, disappeared without anyone tracking him? And most importantly, what had Victoria concealed? When the car stopped in front of a modest trailer park on the outskirts of town, Elijah turned to her. "I can get out here. Thank you, ma'am." Alex hesitated for a moment, then said, "Elijah, if you find anything more about your father, about the person who gave you that watch, I could help you understand more." Elijah's gaze narrowed slightly. For a moment, it seemed he was weighing the instincts of someone who had lived through hardship against the budding trust he had just begun to feel. "I'll think about it," he replied. Then, quietly, he closed the car door. Alex watched as his figure disappeared behind the rusted gate of the trailer park. She knew their journey had just begun, and she had a strong feeling that if the watch had resurfaced, her mother would certainly discover it soon. And when Victoria Blackwood knew, everyone connected to that secret would be in grave danger. Alex remained motionless behind the wheel, her mind trapped between two timelines. The platinum watch, symbol of a childhood promise she thought had been buried, now appeared on the wrist of a white boy she had never met, but who evoked a deep, haunting memory she had long avoided. Ethan. She swallowed hard, her palm sweating. Elijah's gaze, serious, profound, yet still carrying a touch of innocence, made it impossible for her to continue lying to herself. "Elijah," Alex called as he turned to walk into the trailer park. "Did your father ever work as a research assistant? Did he work at a place called Horizon Children's Center?" Elijah turned back, surprised. "I've heard Dad mention it a few times. I think it was called Horizon. My dad's name was Michael Parker. He said that place was the reason he had to leave Seattle." Michael Parker. The name struck Alex like a knife to her memory. She mumbled, almost losing control. It can't be this coincidental. 15 years ago, she'd been just a 23-year-old graduate struggling against the control of her mother, Victoria Blackwood, a notorious tech mogul with a cold, calculating, and tyrannical approach to business and family. Alex couldn't accept that her family manipulated everything for corporate gain. During a visit with her father, Jonathan Blackwood, to Horizon Children's Center, she met Ethan, an 8-year-old boy with eyes as sorrowful as if he had witnessed the collapse of worlds. They became friends. Alex brought him books, taught him coding. Then one day, she secretly brought the platinum watch, one of two family heirloom timepieces intricately engraved with the Blackwood family crest. She gave it to Ethan, promising, "I'll come back. When you see this watch, you'll know it's me." But Alex never returned. Horizon Children's Center suddenly closed a few weeks later without explanation. No one knew where the children were taken. The records vanished. And her mother, Victoria Blackwood, was the one who acquired the property to build the first quantum computing lab of Blackwood Technologies. Alex had investigated, but all avenues led to dead ends. Her father remained strangely silent. Whenever she mentioned Ethan, he would only say, "It's finished now. You must let sleeping dogs lie." But now the watch had returned on the wrist of a boy named Elijah Parker, with an adoptive father who had worked as a research assistant at Horizon. And more than anything, it was Elijah's eyes, the quiet strength in his sorrow, that made Alex's heart constrict. This wasn't a coincidence. This was destiny. She quietly asked, trying to control her trembling, "Elijah, do you know why your father left Horizon?" Elijah lowered his head, his voice softening. "I heard Dad mention it once when he thought I was asleep. He said something was wrong at that place, that he had to take me away, that if he hadn't done that, I might not be here." Alex closed her eyes. The fragments of memory shattered in her mind, piecing together into a horrifying picture. Victoria Blackwood had organized special child transfers from Horizon for unclear purposes, which to this day Alex had only glimpsed in scattered notes like forward assets or test case. She opened her wallet and pulled out a business card, quickly writing on the back, "If you or your Aunt Maggie find anything from your father about Horizon, please call me. This is my personal number." Elijah took it, hesitated, then nodded slightly. "Okay." Alex slowly drove away, but in the rear-view mirror, she saw Elijah standing by the gate, clutching the business card tightly, as if holding on to a secret he didn't fully comprehend yet. That night, in the penthouse on the 60th floor of Blackwood Tower, Alex rummaged through the wooden box her father had hidden behind a bookcase in his study, a box containing things no one was meant to discover. Inside, she found a torn old photograph, a picture of her holding Ethan's hand in the computer lab of Horizon. Alex placed the photo next to a stack of old files, the only document she had ever stolen from her mother's office related to Horizon. It was a list of children. Each name is accompanied by notes, special abilities, not suitable, high potential, and one name circled in red, Ethan Sullivan, special priority, phase 2, transfer, do not trace. Alex closed her eyes, gripping the photo tightly. If Elijah truly was Ethan, then he had once been the focal point of a conspiracy that she still didn't fully understand. And if so, she knew one thing with certainty. Victoria Blackwood wouldn't rest if she discovered the boy was alive. Alex sat alone in her glass-walled office on the 60th floor, the lights of Seattle casting cold reflections across her face. She didn't open her laptop as usual. Nor did she answer calls from the Blackwood Technologies executive team. Instead, her hands turned through an old file, yellowed pages bearing Victoria Blackwood's signature, still sharp as ever. "All leads have been handled." Those words haunted Alex more than any quarterly report she had ever reviewed. In a separate note, it read, "Ethan Sullivan's special handling maintained a contingency plan for KC. No trace left." Below that was a copy of the decision to shut down Horizon Children's Center, signed just 3 days after Alex's last visit to the facility that year. Along with it were a series of documents marked in red: personnel asset transfer completed, sealed files, no outside access except VB. Alex leaned back in her chair, feeling as if reality was distorting around her. Throughout her business career, she had suspected her mother's moral bankruptcy, witnessed her manipulate markets, and heard rumors about silent acquisitions. But for the first time, she realized the true nature of Victoria Blackwood. Not just a tech mogul, but someone who manipulated human lives like data points. And Ethanor Elijah was part of that plan, a contingency. The phone rang, the screen showing Jonathan Blackwood's name. Alex hesitated before answering. "You're getting too close to dangerous territory," her father began, his voice raw as if exhausted. "You knew about this?" Alex asked, her voice hard as granite. "I knew, but not enough to stop her. When I discovered Horizon had been shut down, I asked. Victoria simply said, 'Everything is under control. Don't interfere.' And I foolishly believed her." "Do you know about Ethan?" "I knew you cared for him, knew about the watch you gave him, but I thought he was gone like so many other children, until today." Jonathan's voice broke. "Is he alive?" Alex whispered as if speaking to herself. "Not just alive, he's brilliant, resourceful, and the boy fixed my Ferrari on a highway with some tape and intuition." There was silence on the other end. Then Jonathan spoke softly. "Victoria won't let this go if she finds out. She buried an entire chapter of history just to hide that truth." Alex nodded, her eyes flicking over the photograph on her desk, a picture of her holding young Ethan's hand years ago. "Then maybe it's time to unearth it." The next morning, Alex accessed the classified storage facility of Blackwood Technologies, where her mother kept the most sensitive documents. Using her executive credentials, she unlocked the biometric security system, stepping into the climate-controlled vault that housed decades of the company's secrets. Hundreds of files were meticulously organized on the shelves, but Alex needed only one: Horizon Acquisition, Confidential, Internal Use Only, VBIs Only. She opened the file, her heart pounding. List of children categorized. Suitable, not suitable, transfer, pending cognitive assessment, adoption applications denied for internal priority purposes. A black and white photo. Michael Parker, Research Assistant Record. Note: suspicious monitoring. And at the bottom, a secret diagram. Nexus Project Cognitive Contingency, Inheritance, Generation Transfer Plan. Alex gasped for air. This wasn't just about her mother closing a research center. This was an entire experimental program where children were selected like components placed into a control process to serve Victoria Blackwood's vision of a technological dynasty. The boy, Elijah, who had helped her on the road with kindness and skilled hands, was at the center of this scheme, and Alex understood more than anyone else that the first crack had appeared in the Blackwood Empire. But to bring it all down, she would have to confront her mother directly. She photographed the entire file with her phone, carefully stored the memory card in a secure case, and then closed the vault, like sealing a tomb. As she left the building, Alex didn't look back. But deep down, she knew this battle would be about more than justice. It would be about survival. A light drizzle fell on the cold, wet steps of St. Mark's Cathedral. Alex sat in a secluded corner near the altar, her hands tightly clasped together, her head bowed as if containing a tempest within. Shortly after, Jonathan Blackwood entered, his tall frame wrapped in a navy overcoat, his silver hair damp from the rain. He wasn't the confident man often pictured in technology magazines. At that moment, he was simply a father, trembling with memories. Alex looked up, her voice quiet but firm. "I found Ethan." Jonathan froze, then suddenly sat beside his daughter. He removed his glasses, revealing red-rimmed eyes. Moments later, tears began to fall, uncontrollable. His body shook as if a part of the past sealed for 15 years was breaking free. "Are you certain?" he whispered. "He's wearing your platinum watch." Alex answered, her voice growing steadier. Ethan is alive. His name now is Elijah Parker, and his adoptive father, Michael, was the research assistant at Horizon. Jonathan covered his face with his hands, trying to suppress a sob that threatened to escape. After a long pause, he whispered, "He's not just Ethan, he's one of two." Alex furrowed her brow. Her heart tightened unexpectedly. "Two? Don't you know?" Jonathan turned to look at his daughter, his voice trembling like a leaf. "You have two twin brothers. When your mother gave birth, one of them, according to Victoria, died at birth. She had me sign the death certificate while I was still in shock, and the other one." Alex couldn't finish the sentence. "Ethan." Jonathan nodded. "I didn't know where Victoria took him. She just said, 'Don't worry. The other one will be useful later if your daughter doesn't remain loyal.'" A deathly silence fell between them. Alex's voice caught in her throat. All the accusations she had ever leveled at her mother now crossed into new territory. It wasn't just market manipulation. It wasn't just ruthlessness toward competitors. It was stealing her own flesh and blood to turn him into a substitute for her rightful heir. "When did you know?" Alex asked. Jonathan lowered his head. "I suspected when Horizon closed. I investigated secretly, but all the records were erased. When I confronted her, Victoria coldly said, 'If you want to keep your precious daughter, forget about that boy.'" Alex clenched her fists. Her nails dug into her palms until blood began to surface without her noticing. "He's your brother," Jonathan whispered, "and you're the only one who can bring him home." Alex nodded slowly, as if making a silent vow, but then her gaze hardened. "What about the other one? If Ethan's alive, then Thomas." "Victoria said he died, but now I don't believe anything she's ever told me." Alex stood suddenly, her gaze distant, looking through the stained glass of the cathedral, where the rain-filtered light cast colored shadows. If she lied about one child, then she could have buried another life entirely. "Alex," Jonathan called, concerned, "what are you going to do?" She turned to him, her eyes no longer those of a daughter of the Blackwood family. They were the eyes of an older sister, a daughter, a woman stepping out from the enormous shadow of Victoria Blackwood. "I'm going to find Thomas. I'll protect Ethan, and I'll dismantle this empire built on lies and exploitation." Jonathan gripped his daughter's hand tightly, his lips pressed together, as if witnessing the final act of a nightmare slowly transforming into dawn.